Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to part 3 of Nindie Nation's series highlighting the best indies of 2020. We're taking our 20 favorite games made by independent developers and breaking them up by genre so you can find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced. Today's video is focused on twin-stick shooters, the games that are great to have on your Switch for quick doses of score-chasing action, and these are 5 of our favorites that released in 2020. When the Switch launched in 2017, one of the best and only Nindies available was Graceful Explosion Machine by Vertex Pop. Since then, they've also released Super Crush KO, and both are excellent games you should definitely check out. But Vertex Pop actually released their first game on PC a couple years prior, and We Are Doomed just made its way to the Switch this year. While maintaining the tight, gratifying action and vivid visuals we've come to expect from Vertex Pop, We Are Doomed does it all inside a minimalistic, trippy package that is a great addition to any Switch. With one look, it's pretty apparent that there's a lot going on here. The bright colors and crowded insanity on screen may look unmanageable. Believe me, I thought the same. But in practice, this simple and effective formula makes for a twin-stick shooter that is accessible to just about anyone. You either play stages one at a time or try your hand at the endless mode, and I find switching between the two offers a nice balance. Otherwise, it is pretty much a what you see is what you get situation. There is an overdrive type ability that you can use to help clear the screen, and learning when to engage it is key to climbing the online leaderboards, but that's about it. Even with the simple approach, We Are Doomed feels great and has snuck its way back onto my Switch's home screen consistently since releasing over the summer. $7.99 might seem a bit pricey, but it has already been on sale a couple of times. And if you happen to own Graceful Explosion Machine or Super Crush KO, which I think you should, you receive an automatic discount bringing the game down to only $4. And at that price, We Are Doomed is an easy recommendation. Null Drifter, developed by Panda Indie Studio and published by East Asia Soft, is a bit of a different animal, and we love it. It uses a 1-bit art style, so it looks like a very old 80s PC terminal, like something you'd see in a sci-fi movie. And as you play, you can unlock dozens of different color schemes, which actually can change the game up quite a bit. Otherwise, Null Drifter is structured to be a single-run affair with multiple upgrades to pick from between levels and should provide at least a couple of hours of playtime before completing your first run. At Nindie Nation, we call this formula a Nindie Trifecta, as it includes procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! The gameplay is fast and frenetic, with the screen frequently filling up with enemies, and each level includes a boss with patterns you'll need to learn in order to survive. The controls are tight and responsive, and the upgrade system creates a rewarding sense of progression. It's a shorter game that I finished in just a couple evenings, but there are the usual online leaderboards and a new mode to unlock that keeps the challenge going even after you've rolled credits. Null Drifter is only $5, but since its release in April, we've seen it as low as $2.50. Frankly, it's worthwhile at either price point, and we think this retro-styled shooter with modern trimmings is yet another great addition to your Nindie library. One of the more pleasant surprises of 2020 has been the arrival of the Quantum Astrophysicists Guild and the quality of indies they've brought to the Switch. In the fall, they partnered with Studio Aesthesia to bring Breakpoint to the Switch with a list price of $4.99, and this twin-stick shooter marries the neon-infused visuals of Geometry Wars with an interesting melee-focused weapon system that allows you to upgrade, throw, or break your weapons at will, and the latter creates a screen-clearing explosion that is oh so gratifying. In addition to the variety of weapons and titular breakpoint mechanic, each weapon has a weak and strong attack that will keep you on your toes as you manage their range, speed, and durability as the chaos unfolds. Similar to the other titles on this list, you'll get your primary run where you see how high of a score you can get, and there's a couple of different flavors of that available, but what'll keep you coming back to Breakpoint is the drive to find your perfect mix of weapons and how you want to use them. Breakpoint is one of the more unique takes on the twin-stick shooter since, well, it's more of a twin-stick melee, if that's a thing. And we've seen it go on sale for as low as $3 if you're hunting for a deal, but make no mistake, even at full price, there's a lot to love about Breakpoint, and a few months out from its release, we're still playing it all the time. The latest entry to our Best of 2020 lists is a title released by another one of 2020's Diamond in the Rough publishers, and that is Distropolis, published by No Gravity Games and developed by Igrik Games. Like most of this video's titles, what you see here is what you get. Distropolis is a twin-stick shooter in a 3D isometric perspective that is visualized with low-polygon graphics. There are no levels, rather, you're just seeing how long you can survive an onslaught of red enemies as the lone blue, cube with guns? Speaking of guns, there's a bunch, and you'll get them by defeating said red enemies, or, if you have the right power-up, leveling the gray buildings. Those power-ups, by the way, help set Distropolis apart. Throughout your run, you'll level up as you mow down your opponents, and with each rank, select a randomized perk. You might go for more shields or health, a better chance at getting your favorite weapon, or any one of the 20+ possible options. There's also the usual temporary buffs to find, which include invincibility, overdrive, score multipliers, and the like. Distropolis does get bogged down a bit when things get really hectic, but I never found it to hinder an otherwise great time. As is typically the case with this genre, gameplay is king, and here you'll find a bit slower movement with more precise aiming, and the fun comes most from building your favorite combination of weapons and upgrades, and just going to town. The list price for Distropolis is $6, and of today's list, it's the title that I've spent the most time with, aside from the game we'll discuss next. Distropolis isn't the one twin-stick shooter to rule them all, as there are plenty others with deeper systems or flashier graphics, but I've become quite smitten with it this year and just can't put it down. If top-down or side-scrolling twin-stick shooters are a dime a dozen for you, Distropolis and its endless possibilities for destructive fun is definitely worth a closer look. Forever Entertainment has also shown an impressive turn to high-quality indies in 2020, and that effort is on full display with their Apple Arcade port of Towaga Among Shadows. There's two modes of play in this beautiful game, but the primary will have you standing your ground and warding off waves of incoming enemies approaching from above, below, or on the ground from either side. Occasionally, you'll ascend to the skies and fly around as you shoot down airborne enemies, making for a more traditional twin-stick experience, but that's only a handful of levels, which is fine because the core gameplay is what makes Towaga so much fun. Towaga almost falls more into the category of tower defense because of the role you play. You're a godlike creature rooted on the ground using all of your tools available to keep the enemies from reaching the pedestal on which you stand. You'll start with simple Iron Man-like laser arms, but eventually amass an arsenal of special attacks meant to slow down, freeze, weaken, or stop enemies dead in their tracks. These abilities run on a cooldown, so while you're aiming both arms individually and constantly scanning your environments for new threats, you'll also be keeping tabs on your inventory of special abilities because when things get intense, you'll need them the second they become available. As you defeat enemies and clear levels, you'll also collect two different types of currencies used to unlock upgrades to stats like health and overall power, as well as your special abilities and access to new levels. Speaking of which, the structure of the game is interesting too. Of course, you have various challenges like time attacks and leaderboards, but there's also a flip side to the entire campaign that is quite a bit different. So even though the core game is maybe 3 hours long, there's easily 10 hours of content if you plan on seeing everything Towaga has to offer. That's what I did, and I still found myself going back consistently over a couple of months. What makes Tawaga unique is, well, everything, really. It's a different take on the genre that blends roguelike and RPG elements into a static structure that feels great to master as you progress. It's also quite the looker, too. Things do get a bit framey when the screen is chaotic, but like Distropolis, I never considered it a bad thing, and the overall combination of particle effects and lighting at times makes Tawaga look like it's running on more powerful hardware than it really is. This video series is meant to point out the stars in an excellent year of Nindies and not be a ranking. But of today's video, Tawaga was easily the entry that I spent the most time with and the one that I see myself revisiting the most in the future. Of all of the genres we cover on Nindie Nation, the twin-stick shooter is without a doubt the most crowded, and there's a lot of great entries. This year especially, there were so many standouts that I had to rob our 5th video of an entry to make room for all of these. Speaking of which, we're now halfway through this series, and after covering retro platformers, sprawling worlds, and twin-stick shooters, next we're going to cover the quirky indie games on the Switch that are a fit for anyone, but don't really fall into any specific genre, and if you're a fan of Nindie Nation, I think you can take a guess at what our last entry will cover. If you aren't already a fan of Nindie Nation, but you liked what you saw today, click subscribe and come hang out. We have a weekly show covering all of the new release indies and the best eShop deals, as well as streams and much, much more. If you plan to check out any of the games covered today, drop a note in the comments below and let's chat about it. Thanks for stopping by our 3rd part in the series covering our favorite indie games of 2020. We're all done for today, but we'll be back real soon. Until then, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation's favorite twin-stick shooters of 2020. And remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, you can count on Nindie Nation to be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.